Promising all options are on the table. President Trump is speaking out of the growing crisis in Venezuela today during a meeting with the Colombian president at the White House. Take a listen.
Well, I have great respect for the man that many people think is the real president of Venezuela. I think there are a number of solutions, a number of different options, and we look at all options.
All right, we're joined now by Vanessa Neumann, the Asymmetrica president and CEO, author of a book called Blood Profits. Been very helpful with us on Venezuela. And since the last time we spoke, what do you think is the most important thing to watch here from the U.S. perspective? The president talking today about all options being on the table. What is his next move, or what should his next move be?
Thanks for having me on. Well, from President Trump's perspective, the most important thing is really what is going to happen with the humanitarian aid. There's a big meeting tomorrow at the OAS where you have been invited all the 50-plus countries that have recognized Juan Guaido as the legitimate president of Venezuela. They need to open up those barriers. The military has stood at the border because they consider it an intervention by the United States. What's really at stake is if the international community starts distributing food, the military loses control, because that's how they maintain control over the people. So that's the need, and it's the border with Colombia that's the issue. Colombia also has an interest in this because they were bombed recently from a terrorist that came out of Venezuela. So there would be a key partner to accompany, if there's any military accompaniment to bringing the food into Venezuela, which has been invited in by Guaido. That would be key.
So he set February 23rd, right?
Yes.
He being Guaido has set February 23rd is the deadline for that. How do you see that actually happening? So the food, or the humanitarian aid in general, is in Colombia. So what happens next? What actually has not happened yet that has to happen in order for it to get to where it needs to get on time, so to speak?
Okay, so you have it in Colombia, and you also have two more points that have been set up also along the Brazilian border. And Brazil is, of course, the president is even more right-wing than Duque, and has a little sense of humor. So all of that food should enter. What needs to happen is between now and then, there's increasing pressure on the military to acknowledge Guaido. There's a lot of pressure to say, listen, you can keep your assets, you will be offered amnesty. Senator Rubio has been talking about this. Support Guaido and let the food in and be on the right side of history.
So what if Guaido gets that done? Is it your thinking that then Maduro's basically done, then that it starts to really unravel? And
yes. The humanitarian aid is directly linked with the unraveling of the Maduro regime, because it is the last bit that keeps them in control of the people, is the control of the food distribution, which also acts as a form of corrupt financing for the military. So once that comes in, the military loses that source of income, and they lose that form of control. So that's why it's so important. And tomorrow we will see whether those almost 60 countries also add pressure. If the food doesn't get in, they will also look to impose more sanctions on the Venezuelan regime. So it's really linked to the change.
So that deadline is, a couple weeks away. It could happen sooner than that. So I think I asked you last time, timeline-wise, does that give you a better idea of when this could all really be moving forward in Venezuela? I mean, within a month? Is that, or is it?
Well, we'll see. There are a couple of other factors that need to be taken into consideration here. Russia and China. The Wall Street Journal has reported that that China has been having talks with Guaido's people here in Washington, which is his diplomatic representatives, and that the Russians are starting to do the same. They're starting to realize that there's no going back with Maduro, that the only way these guys can recover their money, which is $20 billion plus for China and $18 billion for Russia, is if they can start making a deal with the opposition. If they flip, now they will probably want to see certain conditions, like more military changing their minds, and they will have a peg. And if they see those events happen and they flip their vote also at the Security Council, then he'll be out. He will get on a plane out.
Quickly,
but that's a lot of conditions.
I got it. All right, that gives us something to watch, definitely. Vanessa, big help again. Thanks for coming on.